Hey, good evening, my friends on Family Forward in the Family Forward Project on Facebook. It is Friday evening, Friday the 13th. I hope your day didn't go too bad. I didn't give an announcement for this live, so I'm going to tag a few people sitting outside here. Wanted to talk a little bit before it got too dark, and it's still a little warm out, so I'm not sure. It might be too uncomfortable to sit out here. As most of you have seen, if you've been watching what's been going on this week, I've had a busy first part of the week. Went up to DC on Saturday, and Sunday there was a music rally right there. I know if you looked online, it might have looked like kind of an odd place to be because we were right in front of the Washington Monument off of a sidewalk. It actually was really a good thing to do. Many years we've had like a big huge stage set up, which is very hard to do, and lots of equipment, and this was just a little tent. We had several people singing, and they did a great job. Lots of people walking by. We had signs, and then we did just some speaking, so I was able to speak. I appreciate that. And Joyce Catalano, I think Robert Slavin, Ed Elliott, Francesca, I think they were the ones who had kind of put that together. So congrats to them for doing that and getting that all put together. And then on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I was busy trekking through the office buildings at legislative up there around Congress. I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. I was looking to see if I had my little map that I brought with me. I'm not sure I did. All right, so I'm going to tell you how that goes and why we were up there, what we're doing, kind of how that works out, walk through that with you. And then there's just a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Okay, I've got a few of you tagged, and if you all just would share or maybe tag a few more people, that would be great. Okay. So we have, I'm starting to sweat a little bit, so excuse me. Maybe I'll get cooled off once I sit down. I've been like run. So we took Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we had a group, and you've seen, if you haven't seen our pictures, scroll through Family Forward. We posted a bunch of pictures up there. What we did is we looked at Senate Bill 1376, and we found out that that bill was going to be put in the Senate Finance Committee. And it is, the title of it is the Families First Transition and Support Act. So what happened, for those of you who are new, in February 2018, Congress finally passed the Families First Preservation and Services Act in the omnibus bill. And the purpose of that bill was to repurpose money, or to shift money from Title IV-E, which is the foster care money, to some preventive services for 12 months prior to removal. And the reason is because Title IV-E money, which is foster care, termination of parental rights money, adoption money, is 10 times the amount of Title IV-B money, which is the family preservation money. Every single state agency that was set up for with the public policy of family reunification and family preservation, and yet every single agency in the United States, because we now have members, I think, from every single state, has turned into a prosecutorial agency, because that's where they get their money. That's what they want to spend their money on. So the Families First Act passed in February 2018, and none of the states have implemented it. And so it is, they've all pushed it back. They had to eliminate group homes. Group homes still an issue, and I'm going to talk to you about something I received today, this letter, just randomly. But it was to get rid of group homes because of the damage that they do. And so we looked at the Senate Finance Committee. So I got this great little directory book. I didn't bring it out here with me, but I went through and I got this great little notebook up there. It's so nice. And I created a Senate Finance Committee list, and I went through and I listed all the Republican and Democrat in like one particular building. and I sorted them by buildings. So there's 3 Senate buildings, the Hart, Russell, and Dirksen building. The biggest one is the Hart building. And so I sorted them out, and then we put the room numbers so we could have a chart on each floor which rooms we would need to go to. So there were several of them. There were probably about 30 of them. And we were able to set some appointments. The chairs of that committee are Senator Grassley in Iowa and Senator Wyden in Wyoming. And I know, I mean, I'm really troubled about Iowa because I know there's so much tragedy going on in Iowa. And Senator Grassley he was on the bill to pass the Families First Act. He's on this committee. And I don't know what to think of him, honestly. So, but anyway, we went and we talked to an assistant in his office. We really had a great meeting. With Senator Wyden's office, the same thing. Wyoming's a little bit different. I honestly don't hear that many stories from Wyoming, so I'm not real sure how it's doing. But I know there's still a lot of problems up there. And so, you know, I don't know if of course, you know how much they have a lot to do in Congress. So once they pass a bill, I'm not sure they ever see it implemented. And so we stopped by every single office, and at least we're able to say we're following this bill. We are a we're a grassroots citizens lobbying group. Grassroots, let me get this right. We are a grassroots citizens lobbying group. That's kind of a mouthful. You need to say it a few times. And said that we were following Senate Bill 1376 related to child welfare reform, and we wanted to get the legislative liaison and the schedulers information so that we could follow up with them. So, but we did have meetings, specific meetings with, like I said, Grassley and Wyden, and then we also had meetings with, we had a meeting set up in Brown's office. I'm not sure if they were able to go back there, but we got caught up in another meeting. I'll tell you about that in just a second. And then we had meetings with Crapo out of Idaho. There was a meeting with Wicker, and I don't remember. We ended up having, I don't have those listed, Davis. Okay, so we had about 5 meetings, and then as we were going through this, some of the people said, well, the bill is still in the House. It's in the House Ways and Means Committee, and it's in a subcommittee called Workforce and Family Support. So I looked up the Workforce and Family Support subcommittee, and on Wednesday morning, Whitney Manning and I walked over to the office of Danny Davis, who is a Democrat in Illinois, for all you Illinois people. And he is the chair of that subcommittee. So we got there real early, before 9 o'clock, and there was another gentleman standing in the hall chatting, and so the door was locked, we couldn't get in, so we just started chatting with him, and then he knew the senator, and he saw him, or the congressman, he saw him walking down the hallway, and he goes, oh, there he is right now. So the congressman invited us in. He's been in Congress for 22 years, and I said to him, so I'm sure you remember the Adoption and Safe Families Act. So he acknowledges, he knows it's a problem. You know, I also went to Marsha Blackburn's breakfast. She is a senator for Tennessee. I talked to her. She acknowledged that the Senate has been advised that of the child trafficking and sex trafficking that's being shut down and exposed by the FBI, that 80% of those victims were in foster care. So they know that problem is out there and that it is unsuccessful. And I said to her, yeah, and there are a whole lot of other bad outcomes too, such as prison, lower education, lower incomes, targets for the next generation for child welfare. So I also, I took 7 of our books with us. I only took 7 because they're very, very heavy. Once you get 160 pages bound together in a little, and I had to put it in a little notebook. I couldn't get it bound because, there was some chaos before I went, and so I couldn't get it all bound. And so I put them in little 1-inch notebooks, looked very neat and very nice. And I had 7 with me, and I put those 7 notebooks. I also went to visit Senator Mark Green from Tennessee and had a very nice long conversation with his assistant, We left books with Danny Davis's office, Mark Green's office, Senator Grassley, Senator Blackburn, Senator Wyden, and Senator Alexander. And then Kathleen Arthur took one book because she wanted to go through it and look for trends such as, you know, removing children without court orders, lying, being untruthful, etc. So we worked really, really hard. I'm just going to tell you, it is really hard. It is a lot of walking, and the temperature was really nice until Wednesday. It got super hot. And so, because you have to walk the 3 Senate buildings, and then you have to walk all the way past the Capitol, and then there are 3 buildings on the other side for Congress. So it is, you've got to really have some walking shoes on and be prepared for walking. I took a backpack with me, which really helped. So we also had a herd of people with us. We had several other people to tell their stories. So it was kind of this cluster, which is, you know, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. They have very limited time. They want you to get right on point and really get to the point as to what you want to say. But then the other side of that is they also need to know that there are stories out there, and they need to hear about those stories. So we had, and it's kind of hard, I know, when you tell your personal story to keep it in 3 minutes. And I've told you over and over and over and over and over, write it down, read it out loud, practice your story. You need to know your story in 3 minutes, okay? So the letters were great, though. I was able to flip through it, show them I had letters from almost every state. I showed them about the class actions, the other litigation that was going on. So it was a great resource. I do hope to get some bound, because the only problem with putting them in the white notebook is that it doesn't really have the picture on the top of it. And so I'm looking at actually getting them bound into some books, and I've got to get some pricing on that. And I know a few of you wanted some, and wanted to give some personally to your legislators. And so I've got to work on getting that done. So, however, when I come back from a trip, if I'm out of my office for 4 days, it's chaos. It's just absolute chaos, and memorandums and blah, 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 whatever, all over the place. But it's starting to get dark here. Before it gets dark, there's a couple things I wanted to go over with you really quick. So I received this handwritten letter. This was, I don't know how this guy got my name and number. I mean, it looks like a handwritten story as in response to my request from Family Forward Project, but it's much more than that. And I'm going to protect his last name. I'm not going to say that, but I am going to read this letter out loud to you because I want you to hear how treacherous this is. My name is Scott. I'm 36 years old, and I'm at West Tennessee State Penitentiary serving a 9-year sentence for possession and delivery of meth and evading arrest. I was put into state's custody at the age of 3 and bounced around from group home to group home for about 7 years. I started getting in trouble at about age 11 and started being put on meds and using tobacco products and smoking weed. I was put into group homes and introduced to drugs and more crime in them. Just being around other bad kids, I started using and dealing drugs before I was 17 years old. And when I was 18, I was arrested for attempted murder and have been arrested over 57 times. I got 17 felonies and was convicted of aggravated assault 2 months after my 18th birthday. I am not eligible for parole until 10/1/20. I've got over a year left. I've been in jail and prison over 8 years of my life. Wow. Wow. That is what we're doing in foster care and group homes. That's what we're doing. What can we do? It's such a failure. So I want to say that, you know, at the end of my trip on Wednesday, I went to the airport, and if you ever been to Reagan Airport, it's pretty much chaos. And I was sitting, they have like this round place where you can sit and have a drink and have a little snack, and you're sitting shoulder to shoulder to people. There's, you know, no peace and noise going on all the time. And the girl beside me was looking at my little notebook because I had it out and I was making some notes, and you know, she goes, "What's HSOB?" So I told her it was, the Hart Building in the Senate. I was talking to the senators about child welfare reform, and she said, and I was talking about Title IV funding, and she said, well, I'm an adopted mom of a foster child. And the guy on the other side of me said, well, I couldn't help it over here, and I have adopted a foster child too. I said, that's great. I said, I'm very, thank you for reaching out and helping children, but there's so much more to this story that people don't know. Well, the woman goes on to tell me that her little girl that she adopted, she's now 13, she adopted her at 10, and she had been previously adopted and then turned back over to the state. And she made a comment that her mother had the mental capacity of an 8-year-old and had 5 other children that were removed. And of course, we know we don't know the whole story. But also what I said to her is, it sounds like the system failed this mother 20 years ago. So, we know that because we have done so poor for the past 40 years, we have done such a bad job for 40 years that now we are into second and third generation of family chaos. So, sorry, children, interrupting. On the other side, the gentleman told me that he had a foster child for a while that was a baby. It was returned to his parents, and that parent severely sexually abused that child after it was returned. And we know that happens. And I've had people come into my office and talk about their child disclosing sexual abuse, and DCS doing nothing about it and thumbing their nose and claiming that the parent put it all in their head. So they're incompetent. The bottom line is they're incompetent, and that the people who are supposed to be protecting children are incompetent. They don't care. They have a stack of files on their desk. They want to reach their quota. They want to look good. Things are buried. Information's not there. So we have to continue, and we have to continue to push. Someone shared with me this little 1-pager, 2-pager, on child welfare financing, and basically this shows, and I pulled another report, that it just really confirms that the states are all relying on about 45% of their operating funds for the child welfare agencies from the federal government, and yet there's no accountability. I've also read, I was working on a motion, response to a motion last week, and it brought me to this case, which is a pretty good case, called Schucklers v. Kramer. It is a 6th Circuit case, and it is about, I will post it later, but it is a really good summary about separation of children and families, and how it doesn't have to be a total separation for it to be a violation of your constitutional rights. So it's been very helpful to me. I am trying to write a response to a motion to dismiss, and I'm not going to give the details of that right now. Finally, and as you can see from this video, it's getting darker and darker outside, and I don't really have a good light out here, so I'm going to have to close out. But I went to a Bar Association luncheon today, and one of the things that was passed out and distributed was a questionnaire that is given to judges as to whether or not they're suffering from burnout. And so I'm going to share a few of those with you, because I know a lot of you people complain about your judges, and somewhere in our mind we have to remember judges are people too, although it does not seem like it. But here's some things that they're supposed to ask themselves in their career path. It says, wait a minute. Often I feel physically exhausted or wiped out. Shortly after my workday begins, I think about what I will have for lunch or about the little chores I'll squeeze in. I have a diminished interest or curiosity about the fate of my former colleagues. Every case in a particular category starts to sound the same. I've heard it all before. My reaction to pleas of urgency is increasingly numb. I feel little empathy for others. I keep people waiting while I finish reading my magazine. I feel cynical about the motives of my brethren. I increasingly feel supremely confident about my own motives and reasoning. My social isolation has increased to the point where I cannot call on my old friends who's still alive. And it goes on and on. There are probably 50 questions for them to ask themselves. Okay, so as you can see, the sun is setting here. We're getting darker and darker and darker and fading out. And this is about as far as I like to go. I like to keep it 20 minutes or less so that I can upload it to YouTube. Okay, just wanted to give you that. And remember, Family Forward Project is a public group. We are here for child welfare reform. We are a citizen activist committee, informal committee, grassroots effort, child welfare reform. We are inviting more and more people who are professionals to our group to view it. We know we are being watched. Parents know you are being watched. Keep your comments. I love your stories, but keep the comments respectful, encouraging, directing, giving people direction and support. Don't take legal advice from people who are not lawyers, okay? Those of you who are not lawyers, don't try to give legal advice. Please post news stories that you see. I cannot keep up with that all the time, and I appreciate those members who are posting the news stories they're seeing about foster care, class action lawsuits. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing Medical Kidnap, because he always has great stories up, okay? Continue to talk, speak, tell the word, tell your neighbor. I'll check with you later as the lights go out. See ya. Bye.